This little person, at 12 weeks, is a fully formed, absolutely identifiable human being. He has had brain waves for at least 6 weeks. His heart has been functioning for perhaps 8 weeks. And all the rest of his human functions are indistinguishable from any of ours.
Hi, my name is Alexis and welcome to Cum Caritas, where we discover, defend, and live the Catholic faith. I recently saw a video of Liz Winstead, I believe is her name. She's a comedian, and she had this to say about abortion.
I also want to remind people that if we don't say the word abortion, we cannot defend it. Let us not talk in euphemisms.
But she herself, while she was talking, used a euphemism, abortion. Abortion is a euphemism for killing babies, for killing another human life. According to the WHO, 6 out of 10 unwanted pregnancies result in an abortion. This is worldwide. So what is an abortion? In the dictionary, it says that an abortion is the termination of a pregnancy in the first 28 weeks of pregnancy. So this word termination, what does it actually mean?
Usually what happens is that he does a termination inside and then he removes the pregnancy.
So normally he just kills it inside, so that wouldn't be,
Well,
okay.
we don't use the word kill, but...
Oh,
yeah,
okay, or terminate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you guys say terminate? Mm-hmm. Okay, just to make it like...
No, just because that's what's happening. Depending on who's talking,
yeah.
depending on what you consider life, conception of life or whatever, when that pregnancy is inside the uterine area and it's under 24 weeks, you can do a termination.
I'm not going to go through all the steps of what a chemical or a surgical abortion has, but if you are interested into looking into it, there's a documentary by Dr. Bernard Nathanson. It's called The Silent Scream. He goes through the different types of abortion in the different stages of pregnancy, early and late. It is very difficult to watch because you have ultrasounds of an abortion. At one point, you do see an abortion happening through an ultrasound, so it is not for the faint of heart. There's also a wonderful testimony given by Dr. Anthony Levatino. There are no images, he's just giving a description of what goes on, but it is still a very difficult thing to listen to. Abortion is the only medical procedure that, in order for it to be a success, someone else has to die. Wait, what do you mean die? It's not gonna die, it's not a person. If we do think that it's just a couple of cells, when does actual human life begin? So is it a child? And if it is a child, when does its life actually begin? So many people might argue that it's not a human being, it's not a baby, it's just a fetus, it's a clump of cells, it's my body, it's my choice. What does science say? Well, science says that it is a baby, that is a human being, that human life begins at conception. According to the American College of Pediatricians, life begins at conception. The predominance of human biological research confirms that a human life begins at conception, fertilization. At fertilization, the human being emerges as a whole, genetically distinct, individuated, zygotic, living human organism, a member of the species of Homo sapiens, needing only the proper environment in order to grow and develop. The difference between the individual in its adult stage and in its zygotic stage is one of form, not nature. The statement focuses on the scientific evidence of when an individual human life begins. I thought about when I was pregnant, for example, I would have loved to not have my child kick me in the intestines, in the bladder, my stomach. So I'm saying if it were me, if it were my body, I should have been able to control it somehow, but I know we don't control everything in our bodies, but it wasn't me, it was a human being. My children were never me. I was never my mother. My husband was never his mother. And so, yes, we are separate from our mothers. We are not their body. And you're not your mother right now. You were never part of your mother. And when your mother, rubbed her belly, she wasn't rubbing herself. She was rubbing her belly because you were there, and she was reacting to your actions as a baby. So typically at about 4, 5, 6 weeks, that's when most women start getting symptoms of pregnancy. They start to become nauseous, they have food aversions, they get really, really tired. And if someone were to get an abortion at this moment in time, so this would be considered an early abortion, they would explain to you, if you were to ask, they would explain that it's just a fetus, that it won't feel anything, it doesn't feel any harm, it's just a clump of cells, which is completely wrong and contradictory to science. So what does science say, and what does Planned Parenthood say on their website? This is what's going on to your clump of cells at 5 to 6 weeks. The embryo is less than 1/5 of an inch long. A very basic beating heart and circulatory system develop. Buds for arms and legs develop. The neural tube begins forming. The neural tube will later form the brain, spinal cord, and major nerves. The bud of a tail develops. The umbilical cord begins developing. Just a week after, 2 weeks after, this is what's happening. The embryo is 1/4 to 1/2 an inch long. The heart has formed. Webbed fingers and toes develop. Arms bend at the elbows. External ears, eyes, eyelids, liver, and upper lip begin forming. The sex organs are the same. Neither male nor female in all embryos until the 7th or 8th week. If a gene triggers the development of testes, the embryo develops as a biological male. If there isn't a trigger, the embryo develops ovaries and becomes biologically female. There you have it from Planned Parenthood's own website. I mean, it's not just a clump of cells. It is a human being. Its heart is beating by the 5th or 6th week. It has fluids that will later form into a brain. By the 7th and 8th week, you have it with a fully formed heart, webbed fingers and toes, elbows that bend, external ears, eyes. I mean, all of that sounds like a human body to me. And it's just funny when people say it's just a clump of cells and it's just a fetus, and that it won't feel anything. In Dr. Bernard Nathanson's video, when you see it react to the clamps that they use, it's not, it does feel, and it's really heartbreaking to watch. So it's not just a clump of cells, it is a human being, and science backs it up. So why is abortion always wrong? Well, I mean, just as we've discovered, it is a human being. What you're taking away, what you're killing, what you're terminating is a human being. And no matter what creed, what religion you are, no religion, killing an innocent human being will always be wrong, no matter the circumstance. Whether that human being is 2 hours old in the womb, or 95 years old without the right to life, you have no other rights. You're not alive to have any right. Some people might argue, I can't do it financially, it's not possible. Okay, it's not financially easy to raise a baby. For the majority of people, it's not easy to raise children just because of financial reasons. Yes, that is true. But if you think about all of the great minds that have come out of poverty, people that have had really difficult lives, that then they strive to become better and they came out of that, and then in turn, provided better for their parents and their families in general. And sometimes a child is exactly what a person needs to push them, to get better in their careers, in their life, to give them the kick in the pants, basically. And yeah, why would you take that away? So are we going to deny a child's future just because of the parent's financial background? It doesn't make sense. Well, what in the case of rape then? It's the same. Why would you punish the child for the crime of the father? The child, the baby, had nothing to do with the rape. Yes, the baby was produced because the mother was raped, but it had nothing to do with the pain that the father inflicted on the mother. A lot of the times when the mother does keep the baby, it's the one thing that brings her joy from this horrible, horrible thing that happened to her. Rape is always wrong, and it should be condemned. It should be charged to the fullest extent of the law. So if there is no death penalty for the rapist, why should there be for the child? Aborting a child, aborting the baby is not going to unrape the mother. You can't do a wrong to make another wrong better. And many abortion survivors will tell you that their life is worth something, that they are not their fathers, that they have brought joy to their mothers and the people around them, the people that they've touched in their lives, that they've met. These are people, these are human beings that you're talking about. And there's so many of them. The child is the something that comes out of the darkness, of the horrible, horrible situation that brings joy to the mother. And why should you take that away? A child is never bad news. A child is always good news. For example, in the case of Ariel Castro, he was a man that kidnapped 3 young women and raped them, beat them, did all kinds of evil things to them. And I don't know if it were 2 or all 3 of them, but at least 2 of them got pregnant, and they kept the baby. And this was the one thing that kept them having hope.
She was just the most beautiful thing.
You hear of rape victims who have a child. How do you just wrap your mind around it and make it work?
This is his kid. How do I feel about that? And she resembled him a lot. And I would look at her and I just felt like, she's mine. She's mine.
Can you imagine that the baby was born on Christmas Day? And it turned out to be the gift that got them out of the house.
They helped the mothers escape. And if he were to have gotten rid of those children, or if their mothers had gotten rid of their children just because of what the father did, who knows where they could be now? They might still be there. We never know. Well, what if it's life-threatening to the mother? I agree. We should remove the baby when it's life-threatening to the mother. But that doesn't mean that we're going to remove the baby and kill it at the same time. The ends don't justify the means. We don't kill it in order for the mother to live. We try to save both. Doctors take the Hippocratic Oath, and in that, they're not supposed to harm their patients. They're supposed to keep them in good health. And if they kill one, that is deliberately contradictory to the oaths that they pledged to, that they promised that they wouldn't do. That is killing another human being. That is hurting the patient. Here's another society double standard I thought about. If a pregnant woman were to be murdered, and during the trial, they would charge the murderer for a double homicide. because she was pregnant. So that's 2 people. But if the same woman were to get an abortion, it would be okay. What is the difference between a mother killing its own baby versus someone else from outside of the mother killing the baby? At what point, like, what is the difference between a baby, a fetus, a baby at 5 weeks versus a baby at 28 weeks, 30 weeks? We never say congratulations on your fetus, congratulations on your zygote, on your cell, clump of cells. No, we say congratulations on your baby. And the same goes on when someone's on trial. It is a baby. So why is it any different when it's the mother that goes and gets an abortion? So what does an abortion mean for us, for me, for you? Abortion is anti-life. It is denying someone else's right to life. It is anti-woman. It is anti-man as well. We hear about women being forced to get an abortion by their horrible boyfriends or their horrible husbands. But there are many women that just go and get an abortion and hide it from the boyfriend or the husband that would have wanted to keep it. And it takes 2 people to make a baby. There are many men that feel horrible that they couldn't do anything to keep the baby, to save the baby, because their partner just had gotten and done it themselves secretly. It's anti-woman because they tell you that you're weak, that you can't possibly take care of this baby. Life is too hard. You can't do it. It's anti-woman, anti-girl in a sense. There are many countries and cultures in this world that if you were born a girl, well, that's too bad because they wanted a boy. Or if you have Down syndrome, there are many countries, I don't know if you look around, there are many countries in which that, you know, they do, here in France, they do that test where it determines whether or not you have a high chance in having a baby that has Down syndrome. And some women, unfortunately, when they do find out that they have a baby with Down syndrome, or high chance, because sometimes they're actually born without Down syndrome, sometimes they just get the abortion because their doctors suggested it to them to make life easier. It's anti-woman in a sense as well, for it's like a giant middle finger to women who have infertility problems, men as well. My husband and I took about 5 years before we could have kids, and at one point we thought we could not have kids. And it is heartbreaking to hear already people, you know, because you want this baby so much, you hear people saying, oh, I'm pregnant, we're gonna have a kid soon. And the worst is when you hear, I had a kid, I'm gonna have a kid, but I'm getting rid of it, I'm having an abortion. And I mean, wouldn't that be just the most supportive thing, woman to woman, that as a woman who can have children, instead of getting rid of it, of killing it, giving it to another woman who has always wanted one. So it's anti-woman in that sense as well for those who are having troubles with infertility. Some people might say, well, what about all the orphans? Who's going to take care of them? Why don't you have one? God willing that my husband and I get to adopt one day. There are a lot of rules and regulations. It's very expensive to adopt, so it's not always an option. Back again to the idea of a bad is not going to make another bad better. You know, having an abortion is not going to give that orphan a family. Murdering a child won't help another child find a family. Abortion also means psychological and physical damage to both women and men.
A few years ago, I did an extensive review of the world literatures looking at studies published between 1972 and 2011, and this did yield over 100 studies documenting variables that increase the risk of women experiencing post-abortion mental health problems.
A lot of women have post-abortion depression, they have post-abortion regret, and post-abortion regret and depression is a real thing and is something that's just not talked about. And there are many, many women and men who are hurting because of this horrible decision that was made, that they made, or that their partner made, and as well as physical risks. We don't know to what point that, for example, in chemical-induced abortions, that is, we know it's killing something, it's eliminating something, killing the baby. So it is a poison, and at what point is this poison killing us inside? Maybe not immediately like it's killing the baby, but perhaps in 5-10 years, or infertility problems as well that occur after an abortion, complications during an abortion, because there are abortions that are done blindly without an ultrasound to help, while the doctor is just going in there with his eyes basically closed, pulling and thinking that he got everything. But sometimes the woman comes back and there might be an arm, a leg, or another baby. There have been twin abortion survivors. One of the twins were taken out, but the mother and the doctor didn't know that there was another one, and thankfully some of them survived. Some of them were injured, but some of them survived. So there's that sense of physical and psychological pain that is brought on society to men and women, and it's just this horrible culture of death and destruction, and it's just really, really sad. Abortion also means destroying the family. The mother loses the child, the father loses the child. A lot of the times they split up. They don't end up together anymore. They don't stay together. There is no family. There's a phenomenon of men, and especially women, who later in life regret not having any children. Abortion also means giving power to abusers. There are many women, young women, girls, we can say, that have been forced to become prostitutes or taken into sex trafficking rings. And when they get pregnant, their abusers, their owners, their pimps take them to abortion clinics. And I mean, so many of them only look so old. They look so young, and there's no way that these girls could pass off as 18 or older as legal. And a lot of the times, even when the person helping the girls out with abortion find out that they're into sex work, illegal sex work, sex trafficking, and that they're underaged, they hide the fact. They don't call the police. They don't inform authorities. And they give the girls back to the abusers.
We're involved in sex work. So we have some other girls that we manage and work with that they're going to need testing as well. So do you guys see them? Or?
Yeah, we see
Teen services.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we see people as young as 13 years old. We see people as young as 13.
What was that? What did you say it was? Bypass?
Judicial bypass.
Oh, okay.
It's if someone is a minor and they don't want their parents, they don't have their parents' insurance, so an abortion would show up.
Oh, yeah.
You know, me and my other counselor, like, for the most part, we want as little information as possible. As long as they don't say 14, and as long as it's not too much of an age gap, then we just kind of play.
What if they do say they're 14?
Well, you know, then from there, it's just really watching what they say.
What if they need an abortion, though?
Oh, that's a completely different story. You never got this from me, just to make all of our lives easier.
Okay.
If they're 14 and under, just send them right there if they need an abortion.
And that's just the cycle. And that's also not talked about. And the fact that there's abortion and birth control in general just degrades men and women to sexual objects. But there is a way out. And if you've had an abortion, or if you've been involved with giving or abortions, you can get out. There is a way to change. You can ask for forgiveness from God. God will forgive you. And your child will, or your children will forgive you. You're not alone. You can get help. I don't think you're a bad person. I believe that you were taught a lie and that you've been manipulated, but you can get out of it. Your life is worth living. You are worth something. And we need you here. God needs you here. And you can get help. You are more than just your body. And ask for forgiveness. Go to confession. And the Lord will forgive and turn your heart and turn your bad, all your suffering and all that you have done wrong into something good. So, what are the alternatives? Well, have the baby. If you're thinking of having an abortion, don't have the baby. Parenthood is not easy. But it will bring you great joy. Out of the sacrifice, there will be great joy. And you won't regret having this child. You will never regret a birthday. Every birthday that you celebrate with your child, 1, 2, 3, 4, 20, 30, every year that goes by that you see them grow, you will never regret it. But if you got rid of your child, if you aborted them, then the only thing that'll come back into your head would be, oh, I would have had this would have been his or hers 3rd birthday. This could have been his or hers 30th birthday. If you really don't think that you can keep the child, I think you should keep it. But if you really don't want to keep it, give the child away to someone else who really wants a child and who would welcome that child with love, with the love that this child wants and needs. It would be the greatest gift. And I'm not talking about surrogate mothers, because I don't think I believe that makes children into commodities. But have the child and give it to someone else. If you're not ready for a child right now, then the best thing is, super old-fashioned, but abstinence. Don't have sex. Actions have consequences. And that's something we've lost in our society, in the world, that actions have consequences. And so, if a man and a woman lie together, it could result in a baby. And everybody knows that. And so if you don't want to have a kid right now, just abstain. If you're not ready to have children, you're not ready to have sex. Plain and simple. I've mentioned this in my conversion video, that I was born in the Philippines. And the Philippines is where lucky citizen number 7 billion was born. It is also a country where 60% of unwanted pregnancies result in an abortion. I remember traveling there in 2015 with my husband for the first time, and just seeing the most, the poorest of the poor. At the same time, you have families with 6, 10, 15 children. That's rare, but 10 is pretty common. And even though they were so impoverished, just the poorest of the poor, they had nothing. Like their houses were literally no bigger than this room, with really basic roofing. And yeah, you can imagine, 10 children in this one little room. But I couldn't, the funny thing was they were so happy. And a part of that, a great big part of that, was due to the fact that they were surrounded by all these children. Yes, it's hard, but they bring so much joy into our lives, and they make you realize, they make you discover all these things that you didn't know you wanted in your life. Children are a gift. They're a gift from God, and gifts aren't a right. A gift is given. Children are a great, great blessing, contrary to what the world says they are. They help us to be humble. They remind us of the simpler things in life. They make us think of the sleepless nights our parents went through for our sake. They drive us in our careers, in our creativity, in the general things we do in life. They push the boundaries of love that we never thought we had in us. And just when you thought you figured them out, they surprise you. If you've had an abortion, I urge you to write in the comments about your experience, so that future women and men will make the right choice. And if you're an abortion survivor, please comment below and testify to your life that is of worth, and all the good that you've brought thanks to being alive. You are here because your mother and father chose to keep you. Gladly. Maybe not. But you're here. Lastly, let us all pray for the end of abortion everywhere. Things are changing. Yes, that's true. But we have so far to go, and we must continue to pray for the end of this heinous act. Pray for the children who have passed, and pray for the ones to come. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know this was a hard one. I encourage you all to hug your mom and dad, and thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time. God bless.